Hey guys, today we're going to be looking at 11.3, which is inequalities with variables on both sides. The take that we're going to be focusing on is 8.8a, which is write one variable equations or inequalities with variables on both sides that represent problems using rational numbers, coefficients, and constants. Okay, so you guys have already done written one-step and two-step equations. We're going to be really focusing on the inequality aspect of this TEK. So first of all, an inequality shows the relationship between quantities that are not equivalent. So we're not going to have an equal sign that separates our two equations anymore. It's going to be an inequality symbol. So let's look at some of the phrases that might be included in the questions on STAR that would identify if we're using an inequality or not. First one is going to be less than, and I'm going to show you that symbol in a second. Another phrase that they might use is greater than. They might also use no more than. And they're going to use at least or at most. So all of these phrases are going to be identified with using an inequality. Some of our inequality symbols would be less than, which means it opens up to the right, or greater than, which means the symbol opens up to the left. We also could possibly see this, where it's a less than bar, but it also has half of an equal sign. So that really represents less than or equal to. We also could see this symbol. It's our greater than sign or equal to with that equal bar. So those are the four that we're most likely going to see throughout this chapter and on the STAR test. So let's do an example from a word problem. So it says the STAR telegram charges a fee of $650 plus $80 per week to run an ad. The Fort Worth News charges $145 per week. For how many weeks will the total cost at the STAR telegram be less expensive than the cost at the Fort Worth News? So first of all, in our sentence, we know that we're going to have to write an equality because the question's asking us how many weeks will the total cost of the STAR telegram will be less expensive than the cost of the Fort Worth News. We also we're describing two different things and showing the relationship. We're describing the STAR telegram, which has a $650 fee, which is going to represent our B, or our starting point, or our y-intercept. And then it also has $850 per week. The word per tells us that this is the slope. That's for the STAR telegram. We also see that the Fort Worth News charges $145 per week, okay, which would represent what? The y-intercept or the slope? Again, the word per identifies that this is our actual slope, so we don't have an initial fee for the Fort Worth News. So now we want to be able to write an inequality based off of this word sentence. So this is how we're going to set it up. We want to compare and figure out how many weeks the STAR telegram will be less expensive than the Fort Worth. So we have the STAR telegram on one side, and we also have the Fort Worth News on the other side. So the STAR telegram fee, first of all, was $650. That's our initial fee, plus the $80 per week. So I'm going to do $80 times X for weeks. That's my equation. Okay, if I wrote this out, okay, this is going to represent STAR telegram. Y is equal to 80X plus 650. Okay, that's the same exact thing we did here. Now again, we're comparing to see how much STAR telegram will be less expensive. So less than is going to be this symbol right here. STAR telegram has to be less than the Fort Worth News. So now looking at the Fort Worth News, again from my equation would just be y is equal to 145 x. So Fort Worth News charges per week. They charge $145 per week. So I'm going to be multiplying times x. X represents the number of weeks, and I just wrote my two equations to figure out at what point the STAR telegram will be less than the Fort Worth News. Okay, so now let's do a couple more examples of writing an inequality based off just the word sentence, or the verbal. Okay, so again, here is, I want you to write an inequality. So this first one, 4 less than a number. I actually want to add is in there. 4 would be the number 4. Is less than would be this symbol that opens up to the right. Twice a number would mean I have to multiply that number 2 times. So 2 times a number. How would I identify a number? Okay, that's actually a variable, so I'm just going to put x there. So when I write this inequality, my inequality should be 4 is less than 2x. That's the same thing as 4 is less than twice a number. Okay, let's look at this one, number 2. The sum means the answer to an addition problem, so I'm going to put an addition sign above that. Twice a number, so again that's 2x, and 5 is greater than, my greater than sign opens up to the left, 3 times a number, so 3x minus 3. So if I write this inequality, I have the sum of twice a number and 5 on one side of my sign. So here's my greater than sign. On the left side I have the sum of twice a number and 5. So I know I'm adding the twice a number and 5 together. So on the left side I should have 2x plus 5 is greater than, and then on the left or right side I have 3 times the number minus 3. So again, 3 times the number would be 3x minus 3 would look like that. So my whole equation is 2x plus 5 is greater than 3x minus 3. Go ahead and take a second to do number 3 by yourself. Pause it, and when you're done, push play to see if you got the correct answer. The answer to this problem is a little bit different. We notice that the greater than is going to be our symbol for our inequality. On the left side I have 4 less than 3 times a number. Now the way you write this as we're reading it is 4 minus 3x. However, when you see less than, that means we have to flip-flop because we're actually taking away 4 from the 3 times a number. So my left side should look like this. 3x minus 4 is greater than my 2 times a number minus 1. So my answer here should be 3x minus 4 is greater than 2x minus 1. Now looking at some more inequalities from real life situations, okay, we're going to do the same but break it down a little bit more. So let's take a look at this real world situation. Before we begin, solving inequalities with variables on both sides is the same exact thing as solving equations with variables on both sides. So don't worry that it's just a different symbol than the equal sign. We're still doing the same exact steps to solve. So our real world problem here is a yellow hot air balloon is 100 feet off the ground and rising at a rate of 8 feet per second. An orange hot air balloon is 160 feet off the ground and rising at a rate of 5 feet per second. About how long will the yellow balloon be higher than the orange balloon? So here we're comparing the yellow balloon and the orange balloon. And in our question it says about after how long will the yellow balloon be higher than the orange balloon. So I know I'm going to be using an inequality here. So first of all, let's break it down. We're going to write our inequality with the left side of our equation and then our right side with an inequality symbol in the middle. So first of all, let's write an expression for the yellow balloon. So in the problem, a yellow hot air balloon is 100 feet off the ground. First of all, since it's 100 feet off the ground, I know that's my initial value, so that's my B. It's rising at a rate of 8 feet per second. Again, that word per identifies that this is my slope. So if I had to write an equation for the yellow hot air balloon, my equation would be y is equal to 8x plus 100. Now, since it says the word expression, I don't need this y equals here. Because remember, we don't have an equal sign in our expression. We want to make an inequality. So the expression for the yellow balloon is just 8x plus 100. Okay, flip it over. Now we have to write an expression that represents the orange balloon. So going back to the problem, an orange hot air balloon is 160 feet off the ground, so that's my initial value. and rising at a rate of 5 feet per second, which means my slope, I'm going up 5 feet per second. So using this information, I now can write an equation for the orange hot air balloon. And my expression, again, I'm not writing the equation, is 5x plus 160. So we have the left and the right side of our inequality written. Now our question was asking us to write an inequality that can be solved to find the number of seconds it will take the height of the yellow balloon to be greater than the height of the orange balloon. So I know my symbol that's going to go in the middle is a greater than sign, but I have to make sure that the height of the yellow balloon is going to be on the left side, because remember, I want the yellow to be greater than the orange balloon. So I always label my sides on what expression goes on which side of the inequality symbol. So again, the equation that we wrote for the yellow hot air balloon is going to be 8x plus 100, and that has to be greater than 5x plus 160. So now we have our equation. Now we have to figure out the actual answer. So how many seconds? Again, x represents our seconds, so we need to figure out at what time the yellow balloon is going to be greater than the orange balloon. So I'm going to write my equation, which I've done for you. They just have changed my variable of x to s for seconds, and I'm going to solve. So let's figure this out step by step, just like solving equations with two variables on both sides. My 8s, I need to put my s's together. I'm combining my terms. So I need to move my s's to one side. So I'm going to subtract 5s. If I subtract 5s on the right side, that cancels out to 0. There's my 0 pair. But I have to do the same thing on the left side of my equation. I'm going to make money signs for s's because that's going to confuse me if I don't. So now on the left side of my greater than symbol, I have 100 plus 3s is greater than 160. So I moved all my s's to one side. Now I have to move my constant or my numbers to the other side. So to get 3s by itself, I need to subtract 100 from the left, which is a 0 pair, and I'm going to subtract 100 on the right. When I rewrite this equation, I have 3s is greater than 60. Now I still have to get s by itself. So right now I'm multiplying 3 times s is greater than 60. The opposite or inverse operation of multiplication is division. 3 divided by 3 is 1, so I now know that s is going to be by itself. Whatever I do to one side, I have to do the other. So 60 divided by 3 is 20. Therefore, my answer is s has to be greater than 20. If I relate it back to my word problem, again it was asking me to figure out the number of seconds it will take for the height of the yellow balloon to be greater than the height of the orange balloon. Remember, we set these with an inequality symbol of greater than. So the seconds has to be greater than 20 for the yellow hot air balloon to be greater than the orange hot air balloon. So let's try another word problem by yourself. I'll help you get started, but I want you to see if you can get ahead of me. The temperature in Amarillo is 74 degrees and is increasing at a rate of 2 degrees per hour. In Houston, it is 68 degrees and increasing 4 degrees per hour. Write and solve an inequality to find how long it will take the temperature in Houston to exceed the temperature in Amarillo. Okay, first of all, from our question, we do want to write an inequality and solve it. The word exceed. They're saying how long it will take the temperature in Houston to exceed the temperature in Amarillo. Start thinking about what inequality symbol you might use for there. So now we have to write an expression for Amarillo and Houston. So looking at Amarillo first, it says that it is 74 degrees and it's increasing at a rate of 2 degrees per hour. The word per gives me a hint that 2 is going to be my slope. And right now it's currently at 74, so that's my initial value. So go ahead and write an expression for Amarillo. Your expression should have been 2x plus 74 for Amarillo. Now let's look at Houston. In Houston, it is 68 degrees and is increasing at 4 degrees per hour. Again, 4 degrees per hour symbolizes that 4 is my slope, and my initial temperature that I started out at is 68. Go ahead and write an expression to represent Houston. Your expression should have been 4x plus 68. So now we have to put this all together and write an inequality and solve. So I need to separate my two sides. Again, the question says write and solve an inequality to find how long it will take the temperature in Houston, so I'm going to put Houston on the left, to exceed the temperature in Amarillo. So Houston needs to exceed Amarillo, which means the symbol is going to be greater than. Houston has to be greater than or exceed the temperature that Amarillo currently has. So now, with my saying or my verbal expression, I need to insert my numerical expressions into this. So Houston again was 4x plus 68. Amarillo was 2x plus 74. Go ahead and take a second to solve. As you're working this out, the first step you should have noticed is that I have x's on both sides and I want to get x's to one side. So I'm going to take away these two x's on the right, which makes a 0 pair, and then take away two x's on the left as well. So when I rewrite my equation, I now have 2x plus 68 is greater than 74. I want to get x by itself, so I need to get rid of this number. To get rid of that, I need to subtract 68 on both sides. And I'm going to rewrite my inequality, so 2x is greater than 6. I still want to get x by itself. Right now I'm multiplying 2 times x, so I need to divide by 2. That cancels out to 1. I have to do the same thing on the right side. So my answer here should be x is greater than 3. Relating that back to the question was asking us to figure out how long the temperature in Houston to exceed the temperature in Amarillo. With this, x represented hours. So this means in 3 hours, the temperature in Houston will exceed the temperature in Amarillo. Okay, we'll work on this more in class tomorrow. Please fill out the Sophia quiz, and we will see you tomorrow. Thank you.